Welcome to the REHolistic Physio podcast. And here we're going to try and find out the whys in order to work on the hows. Everything that is covered on the podcast is based on current evidence and up-to-date information on each topic. Please seek advice from your GP or healthcare professional before carrying out any of the advice that you hear on the podcast. Well, today I'm very fortunate to welcome the Dr. Ace. Dr. Ace, welcome. You are from America, I know, Santa Barbara in America. I don't know if many people are aware of Santa Barbara, but I sure had to look up where it was. Dr. Ace is a licensed naturopathic medical doctor who specialises in personalised natural medicine, including environmental, gastrointestinal, hormonal, and joint and health and regenerative medicine. She completed her medical education at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona, and has also done extensive training in regenerative injection therapies, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and environmental medicine. Her experiences of pain and dysfunction at an early age following an car accident. Sorry, I said I would do that, didn't I? Left her determined to build a strong and healthy body. Her limitations, injuries, and digestive issues have sparked her passion for treating others and empowering them to create their ideal health and become active participants in their healthcare to find the root of cause of dysfunction, alleviate symptoms, and truly heal the body while increasing performance. Dr. Ace is passionate about movement, health, and community. She is a lifelong athlete with a diverse sports background, including competitive basketball, swimming, and triathlon at the collegiate level, and strength and conditioning. She loves getting outdoors and enjoying the beautiful Californian weather and the healthy opportunities Santa Barbara has to offer. Which leads me to welcome Dr. Ace to the REHolistic Physio podcast, which is currently being filmed in the overwhelmingly wet, lovely UK. And the summer we're having over here basically is wet so far. I don't think we've had summer. So, we were just discussing just before recording how it's a bit wet over where you are.
It's true. Just today, though, which is so uncharacteristic.
Oh, I must have sent you the weather over as well as your podcast sort of link.
Well, I was out walking my baby in the stroller, and it just started raining on us, which never happens. So very odd, but it's not cold.
But it's not cold.
Yeah.
No. Well, you're lucky then. I might just pop over for a bit and come and sit with you. I'd rather be warm and wet than over here. It's just dreary and dark. Anyway, that leads me on to my first question, actually, which overall, do you think it's better for the health to be in sunnier, warmer weather conditions than over here in Britain?
Yes, I definitely do. Right. For mental health, with sunshine and vitamin D and, warmth, you just want to move more. Mood is generally better. So yes, I would say so, which is what brought me back to California. I grew up here, and it just has the kind of healthy environment that I appreciate. Lots of other stuff that I'm not a fan of, but yes.
Yes, no, that's nice. I think we need some of that. We need some good weather over here. And I think that might be something to do with why everyone gets quite down, doesn't get moving so much over here. And therefore that probably affects their gut health, as we're going to discuss sort of coming along now. So firstly, I think there's a lot of talk over here, and probably in other countries as well, but especially hear it amongst friends and just generally out and about, or if you're in the supermarket, about the gut microbiome. Can you actually tell us what it is?
Yeah. So your gut, is a common word, right? You have your small intestine, you have your large intestine, and predominantly in the large intestine, which is the last bit of the digestive tract, we're supposed to have a really diverse plethora of bacteria. Trillions and trillions of species. So that is basically what is referred to as the microbiome. So the specific array of bacteria that colonize the large intestine.
I see. So I put some of that together there. Thank you for that. And with it, the gut being the biggest endocrine organ in our body, and it secretes over 20 different hormones, I read. Is that right?
Hormones, neurotransmitters, because it's not even really fathomable to our brains and our daily lives how many different types of bacteria are in our guts and how much they are involved in producing things that our body needs.
Yeah.
Vitamins, hormones, neurotransmitters, all
Yeah.
these sorts of things that it's very complex, but it's also incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Gosh. And the links obviously to mental health we were discussing before we came on actually was the links to mental health, physical health, immune system, digestion, sleep. I read something on your Insta earlier, which I was actually researching myself, was about like the happy hormones. So we were talking about serotonin, dopamine, and things like that. And we said serotonin, I couldn't believe this, incredibly, 95% of serotonin and approximately 50% of all dopamine in your body is produced by your gut, which I think will surprise a lot of people, actually. For me, dopamine, I always thought, oh, brain.
Mm-hmm.
I literally,
The gut
thought,
is literally like, if you were to treat one organ system, it would be the gut, because it's
yeah,
so fundamental to
yeah,
every other organ system. Because when we talk about the skin often manifests things that are going on deeper in the gut. When we're not having good bowel movements, when we're not sweating, we can detox via our skin. When we have rashes or allergic reactions, those can often originate because of inflammation and a microbiome imbalance in our gut that make us more inflammatory. From a mood perspective, yeah, if we have bacteria that are off, we're not producing our neurotransmitters correctly, then we can have depression, anxiety, OCD, compulsive behaviors, ADHD, all these sorts of what are considered, brain or neurological conditions really can have a huge component of gut dysfunction. So really, I mean, with most of my patients, the first place to go is the gut, because nowadays, between antibiotics and alcohol and pharmaceuticals and EMFs, it's just our gut is under assault and high stress. That's another one. So it really takes a lot of effort
yeah,
to have a healthy digestive system. And I'd say most people by default do not have a healthy digestive
yeah.
system. It's a very rare individual that actually has a healthy gut. Most people really need to work towards it. And it's not something, when you achieve a healthy gut, like, oh, yay, I'm there. No, it takes ongoing lifestyle changes and habits to really maintain that, given the challenges of our environment.
Yeah. And would you say so? For instance, people going to work and they go into a shop or supermarket, and they go and pick up a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
How much emphasis would you put on them reading the labels for that sandwich? Because a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I had a chicken sandwich for lunch or a tuna mayo,"
Mm-hmm.
and you read the packet and it has so many emulsifiers. Is that what you call it in America? Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
clarify it. But,
That work.
emulsifiers and things, and
Preservatives and all sorts of.
preservatives and additives, and um, well, I think we're caught out. I think we're caught out. A lot of us are caught out. So we go to a shop. I used to do this before I looked so sort of intensely at my sort of diet and what I was putting in my system. About a year ago, actually, I started looking myself, and that's why I'm getting people on the podcast really to talk a bit more. I realized how much it was affecting my joint pain when I changed my diet.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I
Yeah.
changed my diet, my joint pain was, I
Diet
can't
is
say that was all it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
diet
it
is
was,
so
yeah,
powerful. I had a similar experience. I grew up and I had a car accident and I had chronic pain, but I didn't know, because I was a child, that my diet was keeping me in a state of chronic
yeah,
inflammation.
yeah,
And I worked with a naturopathic doctor who had me avoid grains, mostly gluten, dairy, and sugar for
yeah,
3 months. And I was not happy about this. I don't know
yeah.
who would be if you're used
Well,
to an average diet. But my pain went down about 50%. It was absolutely incredible. And it really motivated me to continue to improve my diet because I saw the benefits.
yeah,
And it's really hard for a lot of people to understand that what they put in their mouth every day can really increase pain, emotional
yeah,
disorders, sleep
yeah,
dysfunction, immune
yeah,
system issues, allergies,
yeah,
so many things. But when we're talking about gut health, really the foundation of that is nutrition, what you're putting
yeah,
in your mouth every day that your gut has to digest and absorb. because we need the nourishment from food, but it's also the easiest way to increase inflammation. And if we're in a state of inflammation, it literally can adversely affect any organ system. It
Yeah.
can affect your joints, as you're saying. It can affect the brain. When the brain is inflamed, like that's not good.
Yeah.
The main
It
way that
control centers, you know.
yeah, I mean, and I mean,
Yeah.
autism is the sort of quintessential brain on fire, majorly inflamed. But then we also see a lot of behavioral disorders with ADHD and such in children. And I would argue that a large component of it is diet. It's sugar and processed foods and preservatives and additives and caffeine and all these things that a healthy child shouldn't be getting. And then let alone, right, talking about adults yourself. Yeah, I mean, what you eat is absolutely key. And I mean,
Yeah.
I focus a lot on getting people to do simple but high yield changes with their diet. And most of the time, I'm focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet. So if we're keeping things simple right from the get-go, the things to limit and or avoid are going to be processed grains,
Yeah.
sugar, and alcohol. Dairy is very quality dependent, and I find that some people tolerate dairy well,
Yeah.
and others really don't. There are lots of reasons I could go into for that, but really the big three are going to be processed grains, sugar and alcohol. So in the context of a sandwich, I get it. It's easy, it's convenient, but it's not healthy. Like that it's just not. And it's
But
just like alcohol. It's
yeah.
just not healthy. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you'll never have any, never indulge, but if you want to
Yeah.
maintain good gut health and you want to achieve good gut health and you're dealing with, diarrhea, abdominal pain, headaches, joint pain, rashes, I mean, so many conditions, it can be really powerful to start with avoiding those big three,
Yeah.
and not just for a few days. It'll really take several weeks to months. I'd say minimum 3 months. And that's really when we can start to notice improvements.
Notice improvements. No, that's really, you touched on some really good points there. And I think so anyone sort of going to work and then suddenly finds themselves thinking, I've got to grab something.
Mm-hmm.
What would you sort of suggest the best thing, like a salad without any, I'm just thinking quick, easy things off the
Something
shelf
quick and
here.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, I mean, a ready-made salad, sure. But then another pitfall that people fall into when they're trying to be healthy oftentimes is not eating enough, under eating.
Yeah.
And that surprises a
Good
lot of
point.
my patients, especially if they're, stressed and tired and
Yes.
overworked. And especially if they want weight loss, they're like, oh, yay, I'm gonna eat a salad for lunch. And then they don't get enough nutrition.
And good
And
enough.
tired and they can't focus well, and they're it leads to a whole slew of problems. So you have to make
Yeah.
sure that you're actually getting
Yeah.
some carbs. So could be a salad and with some meat and some fruit, because then at least that brings in some carbs. Ready made at the grocery store is really going to be hard to get something quality. I mean, if you
Yes.
have a health food store and they have a deli, then you probably have a lot more options. You could get, an egg salad, or, a chicken breast and, a side
Yeah.
of sweet potatoes,
Yes.
so delis can be really good, but your
Yes.
average grocery store, it's not really going to be feasible to improve, to heal a gut related
Yeah.
issue eating in that convenient way.
Yes. And I think the thing is we've found at home here, since making our own bread, I can't say we do all of the time because of time limitations, with children and things like that, and being busy, working people. But with making bread at home, it definitely doesn't last
Mm-hmm.
as long as in
Well,
a
you're
shop.
not
And there's a
having,
reason
yeah,
for that. There's a
as
reason
many
for that.
ingredients. You're not going to have as
Yeah.
many preservatives. You're probably doing it in an actual traditionally fermented type
Yes.
way with the culture. So, I mean, bread on the supermarket shelves is highly processed. So there's really not many nutrients. It
No.
rapidly converts into sugar, tons of preservatives. And in order to have that kind of shelf life, yeah, I mean, all sorts of junk.
Yeah. And the
So,
E
and that's
numbers.
bread is, I would say, is
Yeah.
probably the number one that people, eat, because people think, oh, bread, it's not sugary, it's healthy, but it's mostly highly processed. Now, if you're making something at home, especially with a gluten-free or a sourdough, that can be a lot healthier for the gut. But yes, it's going to take time.
Yes.
And really, that would probably be the number one thing to achieve a healthy gut. It takes prioritizing your health and prioritizing your nutrition. And that can look like, batch cooking on a Sunday and, having things ready to go.
Yeah,
There's
that's
ways to
amazing.
sort of hack it, but it
Yes.
takes prioritizing. It can't be, oh, I'm hungry. Now my nutrition is an afterthought and I'm just going to get something quick
Yeah.
and easy, because the quick and easy isn't healthy.
It's got to be pre-planned. I mean, it really does. And it is almost like another exercise in itself that you do in the week to pre-plan your meals and make sure they are as nutritionally as good a value as you can get them.
Yeah.
Because we find at home, Sundays, that's when it all changed. Was
Mm.
Sundays for me, my husband, I'm a golf widow, he goes to golf. And then I'll be in the house with the kids chilling before their school starts again on Monday.
Mhm.
And I found such release from being in the kitchen. I've never been a cook. I don't really enjoy cooking that much,
Mm.
but I go in the kitchen and I make up scones for the week, or I make up some cookies for the kids, which are, I know what's in them. And the
Mhm.
main thing that maybe is the worst thing I put in them is probably chocolate chips, to
Mm.
create that bit of, oh, look, it's a chocolate chip cookie. And then
Mhm.
they'll eat it, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And I found that Sunday, just preparing it all,
Mhm.
was a really good time to just, everyone can calm down, relax. I'll go in the kitchen, listen to music, do some preparation, and then you've got
Mhm.
half a week's worth of food almost
Yeah.
that you can just, take, and how it's been made, what's in it.
Yep. It's
You
true.
can kind of dictate then what your gut's getting, and what the
Yep.
rest of your body's really getting. But
It's
it
true.
does take planning. And that is one thing I would say to most people, is a lot of planning. Write it
Yeah.
down, write a diary, write on a board, a chalkboard, what you're going to have, meal plan,
Yeah, I
shopping
find
list.
yeah, between my husband and I, we sometimes write it on the fridge. We have a little, a magnetic thing. Okay, we're gonna do
Yeah,
this meal, this meal, this meal. What do we need to get? It's just, and we are a big fan of doing things in batches so that you don't have to cook for every meal. Do a big batch of sweet potatoes
yeah,
and have them for 3 meals. Cook up,
yeah,
some steamed broccoli and asparagus, have that as sides for several meals. Do a batch of
yeah,
chicken breast, cook up a crock pot with some,
yeah.
lamb or beef, and then you use things as multiple meals.
Yes,
Um, and that's really the way to make it
that's the way to do it.
easier. Yeah.
Can I ask you, what is your take on oils, using various oils? So, for example, I use mainly now olive oil, coconut oil, or grass-fed butter, for example, over here. What's your take on this? What's the best sort of thing that we should be using to cook our meals in?
So, very similar to what you said you're using. I would want to use your fruit oils, so your coconut, your avocado, your olive, but it depends on the heat. So olive is going to be best raw to low heat. Refined coconut oil is high heat stable. Same thing with avocado oil. So those two can be
Yes.
can be really good. And then also, yeah, the animal fats. We've been indoctrinated to think that animal fats are bad. But the reality is healthy animal fats, animals that are grass-fed, pasture-raised, that haven't been exposed to a ton of
Yeah.
chemicals, they actually are really nutrient dense and good for our bodies. So, I think there's a big change. We had in the 80s and 90s the super low fat fad and the go vegetarian. And I was unfortunately a baby raised in that era, hence, developing digestive issues, because you can only eat so much, carbs and processed stuff without protein and, solid healthy fats that, that didn't work for me, at least.
Yeah.
But now I think there's starting to be more awareness of the health of animal fats. So
Yeah.
grass-fed butter is readily available. Ghee,
Ghee. Yeah.
I'd say a little bit less broadly accepted are going to be beef tallow, duck fat, right? Those can be found in some health food stores. You can render those from cooking meats yourself, but those are not as common as the ones that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other thing is, if we are talking maybe about people that are vegetarian, for instance, what would you use instead? I mean, there are obviously other alternatives, as we said, about the seed and fruit oils, but when we've spoken about the nutritional value of obviously using meat-based products, what would they use as a slight substitute, I guess, or what would you recommend is the best
Best
alternative?
in terms of fats or proteins?
Yeah, fats. Well, fats and proteins, actually. We've touched on
So, I
both.
mean, I would say, as a general principle, being vegetarian is not going to be as healthy as being an omnivore, right? An omnivore in terms of eating animal fats, animal protein, veggies, a wide variety of a whole food diet, because animals really, they have digestive tracts that are vastly different from ours. Most animals, let's talk about, cows, beef, they are herbivores. They are designed to extract all of the nutrients from grasses. We don't have those kinds of digestive tracts. So we can't get all of the essential nutrients that we need, especially B12, for example, without eating animal products. So in vegetarians, it can be done with a decent level of health, but I would never say that I would actively recommend that for someone, because most vegetarians aren't doing the extra work to make sure that they're getting a nutritionally complete diet. Most vegetarian sources of protein come with a lot of carbohydrates. Legumes, for example, like peas, right? They have protein, but they have a lot of carbohydrate. There really isn't a good pure protein that is vegetarian. I mean, pescatarian can be sort of an intermediary, especially if someone's eating eggs and fish, then at least we're getting some, solid sources of still animal, but not,
Yes. Yeah.
red meat protein. So, I think legumes are the go-to for most vegetarians. They're quite difficult to digest, beans, the wonderful fruit, the more you eat, the more you, that's old adage. It's true,
Yes.
right? It takes a lot more energy, and we
Yes, it
just
does.
are not primed to digest legumes well, or it is a rare individual that can really digest them well. And to really be able to get adequate protein, which I would say is at least, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. That's kind of a very general principle, but I would say most vegetarians are not getting that. I'm not, so I'm what, 135, 140 pounds. So what, that's like 62, 64 some odd kilos.
Yes.
So can't do the quick math in my head. I'm used to our horrible non-metric system. But
Get a
just
calculator out.
essentially adequate protein, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard,
Yeah.
because you're getting so much carb and therefore can only eat, so much. And it's not that a vegetarian meal every once in a while is, I think, going to be problematic, but to be completely vegetarian, to not eat any, meat, it's just going to be more challenging. And I've had quite a few vegetarians, and even worse, vegan, because vegan is the extreme, right? They wouldn't do any eggs, they wouldn't do any butter, any of those fats. Major digestive issues, low energy. It's very difficult to extract all the nutrients that we need. But the caveat is quality, right? The feedlot beef and the inexpensive, animal products out there, I would say it's better to not eat those and be vegetarian than eat those antibiotic, hormone, toxic pumped, animal products. So it really, comes down to prioritizing and putting up money for your health, because healthy animal products are a lot more expensive.
Is it better then to eat, because obviously we're going through a cost of living crisis, is it better to eat a little bit of good stuff than not at all. Because obviously if you go into a supermarket and you can buy a small amount of a good bit of grass-fed organic steak, for example, you know, that's going to cost a fair amount over here. But is it better for you to eat a small portion of that each? And maybe we buy one between three of us, you know, sometimes, and have that instead of having nothing at all and just trying to eat, you know, lots of other bits.
Absolutely. I mean, with animal products and even with all sorts of produce, you know, it's best to buy organic, but there's certain produce that's going to be more problematic when it's riddled with pesticides, like your berries and your bell peppers that really absorb the pesticides versus your, you know, banana, for example. It's less important to get a banana or an avocado organic because they have skins that you can readily peel and don't eat. So there's ways to make it more cost effective while you know, prioritizing your health.
Prioritizing. Yeah. No, it's really, really good points there. Thank you so much. And in terms of obviously there's a lot, the gut, you know, we're talking about gut health, it has a massive impact on all sorts of systems in the body, obviously. What are the signs and symptoms, would you say, or the most common ones? Because I know this is probably a huge area and huge topic in itself, but what are the main signs and symptoms you would say for poor gut health? So someone here is listening at home going, oh, this might be an area I need to have looked at. What would be the main?
I would say the most obvious is going to be primary digestive symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. But you know, we can all have digestive issues without having those symptoms. And it's a common misconception. Oh, I don't have any gut symptoms, therefore my digestive tract, my gut is healthy. No, probably not, because the next place is, what's your skin like, right? Do you have rashes? Do you have eczema? Do you have allergies, right? Whether it's, you know, on your skin or, you know, nasal congestion or, you know, tonsillitis or ear infections, those sorts of things really speak to our gut microbiome. And then mood. Mood is another huge one. You know, just because of all of the chemicals, because of the neurotransmitters. And then I would also say pain, chronic pain, not like I sprained my ankle, right? An injury, that's obviously different. But when it becomes this chronic pain, more than 6 months, you know, chronic back pain, and when it becomes multiple areas of the body, that's oftentimes a state of chronic inflammation, which is going to go back to, at its root, being exacerbated by your gut microbiome and what you're eating on the daily, whether that's, you know, grains, alcohol, sugar, you know, infections in your gut, parasites, all these sorts of things. Those can be highly inflammatory and then lead to chronic pain.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that's going to be useful for people to listen to this. And how do you know then, the other way around, that everything is okay and you're in your most optimal health, gut health that you can be? Are there signs? Are there things, or are you just looking for the negative symptoms, you know, sort of?
I would say the absence of those symptoms for sure. And then, I mean, really good bowel movements, good, healthy, clear skin, clean energy, good mental clarity. Yeah, those can help us know that our gut probably is healthy.
No, that's great. No, thank you. And if you could eat a few foods a day, for instance, this is quite a hard one as well, but if you were to say to people, there's a couple of things I'd recommend or something, what are the key things that you normally would recommend to people to start putting into their diet or extracting, whichever way?
I mean, extracting is probably more important, right? And I would stick with what I said earlier in terms of the processed grains, especially the processed gluten grains. And so that is, you know, in the US and the UK, the #1 grain is going to be wheat. So anything that has wheat in it. So that's the vast majority of your pastas, pastries, bagels, muffins, cookies, you know, all of that sort of stuff. Gluten-free is going to be sometimes better, but it has a lot of problems when it's coming from a conventional grocery store with, you know, pesticides and herbicides and preservatives and such. So as a principle, I would just say low processed, meaning grains have rice, have oatmeal, have quinoa, these gluten-free unprocessed grains that can actually be good carbs. So I'd say avoid the processed grains. Avoiding alcohol. Most people don't like to hear that because people think alcohol is so normal. It's so societally accepted, but the reality is that it is just a neurotoxin and it really erodes the health of your gut and the health of your brain. So I always recommend people to very consciously consume any alcohol that they're going to consume, knowing that they may enjoy it, but that it is not good for them. And not that everything we have to do in our lives has to be, this is good for my health, but the things that are not good need to be done very sparingly. And if you're not feeling great, it's really a time to majorly dial back. So alcohol would be the second one. And then sugar, right? Sugar is so pervasive, right? You
It's
mentioned,
everywhere.
yeah, in the
Everything.
chocolate chips for your kids, right? It's in almost every processed food, everything that you can buy that's packaged in the grocery store, because food companies know what we're designed to like and what keeps us coming back, what gets us addictive. It's your sugars, your salts, and your fats, and that trifecta is a hard for anyone to resist. So basically process things with sugars. So that leaves people, right, making a lot of things for themselves. Or if there's, healthy grocery stores with good delis or, healthy restaurants, those can be great options here. We have a plethora of that, thankfully. Something that I love about being here. But then on the what to add in, you want to make sure that you're getting protein with every meal. That's probably the most important thing to add in, because protein is arguably the most important and undervalued macronutrient, because it helps us build our bones, it helps us build our muscle, it helps us stabilize our blood sugars. It's for our immune system, it's just the most important thing. And most people skimp on that because, most people would much rather go for a muffin than they would jerky, or a cookie versus a hard-boiled egg. Just our brains are designed for survival to crave sugars, but that's not what is going to help your gut thrive. So protein with every meal, and then really getting as wide a variety as you can of vegetables and fruits. Those are going to be the most important. And then the healthy fats. So on the fat side, eggs, avocados, your fruit oils, right? Your olive oil, your coconut oil. I would not go for seed oils, the safflower, sunflower, canola, all those sorts of ones. And then that's going to be the majority. Most people don't need a lot of carbohydrates in our diet. If you're an athlete, that's a different story, right? But the base should be protein, fiber, and fat, and then some carbohydrate in a low processed form mixed in. With those dietary principles, it sounds simple, but it's really powerful. And if someone moves in that direction versus your standard processed, high sugar, high carbohydrate diet, oh my goodness, focusing on that alone can completely revolutionize your health.
And it's just breaking it as well, isn't it? It's just breaking those habits, because sometimes it's so addictive to eat in that way that actually it's hard to break. So then it's really, you have to sort of, don't like the word detox, you have to kind of reset your health.
You do.
So you're programmed to only eat those things because you're not craving them then.
Yes.
And that's how
often think, oh, I could never cut out caffeine. I could never cut out sugar. I could, never cut this out. But it really is true. Once you stop having them, you become way more sensitive to them. And all of a sudden, that strawberry that, tasted kind of bland now has a lot more flavor and is a lot sweeter to you, because you're not eating all the cookies and pastries, and our bodies then stop craving as much of those sugars. But it does take a wean process, a detox process from that, but you can free yourself from that cycle. But no, I mean, it's also evolutionarily, from a survival standpoint, ingrained in our biology for all of us. Like, all of us would love to eat ice cream all day, every day. That would just, make us so happy for about 2 minutes.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
we would be a disaster.
Then it's like down. I
Exactly. The
know,
crashes,
the
horrible.
crashes.
Yeah, which
So
would
no,
not.
I mean we're gonna do actually have someone on, Sarah Armstrong, she's Healthy by Habit. She does a 10-day health reset,
Oh, lovely.
which looks really good. I actually have started it.
Beautiful.
And that looks really interesting. Actually, that's coming up on one of the podcasts. And that kind
Great.
of goes into some of the foods and things and how to reset your system and
Right.
try and reduce some of those cravings that you get through eating various things. So that should be really interesting. Um, so one of the last questions I want to ask you, because we've covered so much and it's so interesting. We could go on for days, I think, about this, to be honest. Honestly, I reckon I think we can talk about it for days. I'm so interested in it, and I think it's so important. And the way I've changed my own diet, I used to think I was really healthy, but actually, when I got down to the basics of it, what I was eating wasn't actually that healthy, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was causing a lot of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try and sort of, I mean, even my mum, I now teach her about ultra processed foods and not using certain oils, and she came around and stayed with me the other week and I got her on board with it all, I think, as well, and she was
Yeah.
asking me lots of questions and I was like, this is great, if we can just
It can
teach
be so
one
exciting.
other, two others. I know, it's so,
Because you
you've got to,
realize that via your choices that you make every day, you're literally creating your health.
yeah,
And it's a completely different paradigm than we're taught. Sickness just happens to us. We just get an autoimmune disease. We just get ulcerative colitis. This just happens and we're just
yeah,
little victims. And it's just not the case, and so, if someone is dealing with a health issue, looking at what can they control, what can they start to improve, and starting with diet is the
yeah,
most fundamental place. And you do that at home. Start tonight, right? It's amazing when you actually do how many things
yeah,
that people don't think are related to their gut or their nutrition can improve from just that alone. And then once nutrition is better, then for me as a doctor, it's so much easier to actually see the root of what the leftover issues are. So that's where I have a lot of my patients go through
yeah,
a 6-month foundations program where I'm literally teaching them how to eat well, how to move well, what they need to do in their daily lives to create the foundations of their health.
yeah,
Usually about 2 months in, we're having our second visit where it's like, okay, you had high blood pressure and you weren't sleeping well and you were having rashes, and oh, those are all 60% better, but not 100% better. Okay, now let's fine tune. But it's going to be so much more obvious what we need to do from a medical perspective versus, the blood pressure, the allergies, right? Just take a medication. When it's so out of control and you have no idea where it's coming from, you feel powerless to make changes yourself because you don't think it's going to yield results, especially when those changes take effort, take prioritization, take finances to, make that a part of your life. But yeah, it's revolutionary. So good on you
yeah.
for spreading that with your friends and your family. And I too, I've lived that. Like, the first naturopathic doctor that I worked with had me change my diet, and within 3 months, it was light bulb. And that's
That's why I'm
really,
so passionate. I think I'm
yeah,
so
right.
passionate about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise, you can probably tell, right? And then
yeah.
it's just once you start to realize, oh, I do this and it improved my health, then it's like, oh, what else can I do? And
Yes,
there's
that's what I was going to
so
say.
much
What
that
else
we
can I
can
do?
do for our
Yeah.
health. And then we're
And it
not
makes it
victims.
makes you then more physically able. Like I found I can train better. And
100%.
I'm now 40, nearing 40, very nearly 40. Give the game away there, how old I am. But I train better now, and I would say I'm fitter than I was probably before I had my children
Yeah,
in my
it's
20s,
totally possible.
early
Yeah.
30s. And I go to strength training now. I've completely changed the way I train actually.
Hmm.
More strength training, plyo stuff, and I could keep up.
Yeah.
Whereas
It's
before I'd fatigue
yeah.
and flake. And
Well, and
I,
that's where some people just think it's age, and it's not just age, there are, yeah, I have the the,
positive.
the
I love this
50-year-olds, the
conversation.
60-year-olds that are
Yeah,
in better health
yeah,
than when they were in their
yeah,
20s. It's so true.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is
it
just
really,
oh,
really
this is the
is.
best conversation. Thank you so much, because it is like, it just is brilliant. I just hope that people really learn something. I'm sure they will. People listening will really learn something, take something away from this. I really hope they start to make some changes, some small changes themselves, and just see the difference that this can make. So just quickly, we did say about probiotic and prebiotic. I have no clue what the difference is. I'm going to put it out there. Can you tell us? I think we're all getting stuck.
So a probiotic is actually a bacteria. So, because I said our microbiome is trillions of bacterial species. So taking a probiotic is literally taking a bacteria. So the most common ones are in the lactobacillus family or the bifidobacteria family, sometimes some strep thermophilus. There's a lot of, long scientific-y sounding names because these are biological names given to bacteria, right? So if you're looking on your cultured yogurt, right, and it says lactobacillus acidophilus, right, that's a probiotic. And so with those, it's going to be difficult to know the quality of them because so many products that are health foods, are going to claim that they have probiotics, but the probiotics need to be in an environment where they can thrive. So there's a lot of marketing that can go into saying, oh, this has, 100 colony forming units, this has 100,000 colony forming units, but that's at time of manufacture. So a lot of, probiotic foods, by the time you eat them, they are not going to be what the label says. So the food needs to be refrigerated. It needs to be cultured, like a kefir, right? That's going to be a cultured yogurt, right? Or a kimchi is going to be a fermented probiotic containing veggie mix. So there are foods that are really good probiotic foods, but foods that have that are dried or drinks or things like that that say probiotic, it's a buzzword nowadays, right? So you have to be discerning. Prebiotic is fuel for the bacteria. So it's fuel for the probiotic. So
Yes.
the notion is you take a prebiotic that fuels the bacterial growth of the probiotic in your gut.
Yep,
The
makes sense.
problem is that they don't fuel just the probiotics. They fuel all of the biotics, all of the bacteria, right? So your prebiotics in terms of inulin or fructooligosaccharides or any kind of fiber syrup, right? So a lot of processed foods like energy bars will say no sugar, but they're going to have inulin or chicory root or artichoke fiber, like fibers, right? A lot of fibers. Fiber is fuel for bacteria, right? So if your gut microbiome is healthy, if you don't have a lot of overgrowth or infection of problematic bacteria, then you probably would do well with prebiotics. But I find the vast majority of my patients, myself even included, I don't do well with a lot of prebiotics because it will fuel the growth of all of the bacteria non-specifically. So that's where it's going to be much safer to go with something that just has probiotic, because that's in giving you the good bacteria versus the prebiotic that's fueling the growth of bacteria.
Yep. Thank you for that, clarifying that. I now understand it a lot more, so I hope everyone at home does too. Now, final thing, because I have kept you for so long now, just so interesting, and I love talking to you. What are 3 key points? If someone could just listening to this at home, maybe start something or just think, oh, what was that point again? 3 key points that you'd like people to take home from this.
I would say number 1 is your health is a product of the choices that you make every day. Right? So recognizing that and then starting to live that and hopefully being empowered by that to make decisions and choices that create your health, right? And so the second would be probably the number 1 most high yield thing to start with is avoiding processed grains, sugar, and alcohol. Right? Those are the 3, kryptonite trifecta that if you avoid those, you're probably already going to upgrade not only your gut health, but your overall health. The third would really be that right? Even if you don't have diarrhea or gas or bloating, right? It doesn't mean that your gut doesn't need love, right? Our guts always need love. Our guts need to be cultured, right? Our guts are like gardens. They need tending because they're living microorganisms inside our gut. So, making your gut a priority is key, right? You don't want to wait until you have diarrhea or gas or bloating or any of the
Don't
other
wait for the symptoms.
digestive symptoms before you really make it a priority. So those would probably be the big three.
Brilliant. No, I think they're exactly the right points there. They're exactly the ones I took home. So thank you. Dr. Ace, it's been amazing speaking to you. I've really, really enjoyed it. I've learned so much. I know everyone at home will too. So thank you so much for coming on the REHolistic Physio podcast. And I hope to speak to you again soon.
Sounds lovely. My pleasure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.